Hey everybody, welcome back to The Stuff of Legend. My name is D-Lo and I've got another video for you today. We are going to be talking about an interesting, somewhat broad topic, and it's most entirely rumor, speculation, theory. So take this with massive grains of salt, but the word on the web right now, and we'll get into all of these things that, again, you're going to have to look at for yourself along with me and make up your own mind about what you think is going on based on these supposed leaks and rumors. And we're going to chalk them up as rumors. So you can't bank on it. You can't say this is a fact, but I do think that it does make some sense. So the sequel trilogy may be getting decanonized very soon, and there may be changes coming to the structure of the leadership over at Lucasfilm very shortly. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these rumors, and we'll talk about it. We'll speculate. You guys leave your thoughts, your comments, and what you want to happen with the sequel trilogy, what you want to happen in the next few films, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So before we get going, wanted to say, hey, welcome back, guys, to the Stuff of Legend. You can see I got my Mandalore hat on right now. This is actually my, I usually wear this one fully, but didn't want to. It's a little bit warm in my garage, so I want to try to keep it nice and loose and cool. So if you guys have a second of your time and an ounce of compassion for me, make sure you like this video, comment down below, comment in the live chat. I want to hear your comments, and before the end of the video, I'll pop in and I'll check those, and we can talk about anything you guys drop in the comments, any questions or theories you have, what you would like to see going on at Lucasfilm with Star Wars, or just anything in general. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That helps me out a ton. My goal is to get to 1,000 subscribers so I can start making some money out here on YouTube, because right now I don't make anything on YouTube because I haven't hit that threshold. Would appreciate it. It means a lot to me. And more than anything, I would say turn on notifications by clicking the bell next to the subscribe button so that you can be alerted when I go live, because all of my videos I'm pretty much doing live now. And then you can be part of the Stuff of Legend. You can have your conversation, your opinions brought into the video, and we can discuss those together. And I like that. That's one of the main reasons why I do this channel, is I love to talk to you guys about some nerd content, and this is fun for me too. I love getting into these rumors, even though you can't bank on them. It's not news per se, but there is someone saying that they've heard from an insider at Lucasfilm that there's stuff going on, and honestly, that gives me some hope, because we need some change over here. And there is things about Lucasfilm, Disney Lucasfilm, that I love. I'm not an anti-Disney Star Wars guy, but the sequel trilogy specifically needs some help. And we'll talk about that. So, in fact, I think maybe it might be abandoned. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so now we're heading over here to this cosmic book news. If you guys know, if you guys are already like into following news and that sort of thing, you've probably heard about Cosmic Book News. I don't go to these guys for news, but I had people send me these articles, and so I figured it'd be a lot of fun to talk about it. Cosmic Book News does a lot of opinion pieces. They have been right on a few things. They've been right on some stuff, but they also make a lot of videos and claims even about things that don't come to pass. And sometimes the nature of that is that what they're told was true at the time, but the business, the industry makes changes, and then that doesn't come to fruition, and you just end up getting egg on your face because it didn't pan out the way that you knew it would at the time. Then sometimes there's just people that claim stuff and it doesn't happen. So I don't want to be that. This does happen at Cosmic Book News, but I do enjoy their articles a great deal, and these particularly are filled with all kinds of hope for Star Wars fans who have been quite disappointed lately, whether your disappointment was The Last Jedi, whether it was The Rise of Skywalker, or all three movies, whether it's been, you know, Solo or whatever else it might be. I'll talk about that as we go, but let's start here. Disney, we'll start with Disney resetting Star Wars, erasing Last Jedi. Now, this was one that was posted quite recently, on the 29th of June. I'm going to go ahead and just start reading it for you, and then we'll go to the next one, and we'll talk a little bit as we go through the article, and then between articles, and then maybe we can even jump back and forth, just because Again, take it with a grain of salt. This all comes from someone who says they have an inside source, and we just have to trust that. So let's talk. A new rumor has hit the net offering that some sort of Disney Star Wars reset is in the works, and that will see The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Skywalker, which is The Rise of Skywalker, basically erased. The rumor, which it is a rumor, it's not fact, okay? The rumor comes from the future ruler of Earth, quote unquote, and then it says this name. I'm not even sure if I can say this because I try to keep this one PG. You know what? I'm going to say it. It says the Doomcock Overlord DVD YouTube channel. I try to keep myself professional as I say this. Who recently offered that a Star Wars Civil War, not a movie, but a Star Wars Civil War is happening at Lucasfilm between Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau. Some might call him the heir to the throne, or someone who might suggest that he might be the right guy to take up and lead Lucasfilm. We'll talk about this in a second. I know there's a lot of people who are watching this video who are Kathleen Kennedy diehard fans. I want you to know she is one of the best producers in Hollywood. She's responsible for so many of the best Hollywood films being produced. And I mean that. I'm not just trying to play a neutralist. I've said this so many times on my channel. She's not a creative genius. She's one of the best producers of all time, but a producer is not a creative officer. And a lot of people said that from the beginning. Why is she doing this? She doesn't have like any credentials as a creative officer. She's a producer. They should get someone who is a creative officer or someone who has really deep knowledge of the Star Wars world as a big time fan to get in that role, like either Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, or the two of them, or all three of these people. You don't even, in my opinion, you don't have to have her step down from chief executive of Lucasfilm, but you should delegate the role of creative officer to someone who is qualified, who will not run this franchise into the ground because they have an agenda. And we'll talk about that. Okay, so leave your comments if you want to discuss that. I'm always willing to talk and listen and hear your side. I'll give you my opinion as well, and we can talk. So the rumor comes from, so we already talked about that. Let's go down here. Mr. DC is what I'll call him. Also previously provided the Skywalker spoilers. And prior to Marvel Studios announcing a new director and writing team on the Captain Marvel sequel, said there were all kinds of problems at Marvel with Brie Larson and Captain Marvel. Interesting enough, Kevin Feige is now going with Elizabeth Olsen and Scarlet Witch. Basically, what they're saying here, Cosmic Book News is just trying to validate the source. So they're saying that Mr. DC has made some valid claims before, and so I'm willing to accept that. I'm willing to accept that on the basis that I do believe that these claims he's making are fairly reasonable, and they seem to me like very obvious issues. It's not like a giant leap to suggest, but if he does happen to have inside information, it would also mean, hey, maybe he is more reliable. So these guys at Cosmic Book News do tend to do that, just point to instances where the source they're citing has been accurate before. That's a good thing because it helps to build trust. Let's move on from that point. Update. It's claimed that Star Wars Reset involves Kathleen Kennedy stepping down. I have that. That's the next article we're going to talk about, so just hang on tight and we'll get back to that exactly after this. And possibly Jon Favreau named as the new head of Lucasfilm. We'll talk. It says Disney Star Wars trilogy getting nullified. This is what's interesting. Getting back to the rumor, Mr. DC says that that plans are in place to save the Star Wars franchise, which involves the Abrams and Rian Johnson trilogy getting nullified. In my opinion, that's not a bad idea. I'll tell you why. And it says it's claimed that Disney Star Wars trilogy will be erased using a concept that was recently made canon in the Star Wars Rebels animated series. If you guys have not watched Rebels and you want to, we will be talking about a little bit of some spoilers. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it might actually give you some interest. It might turn you off, but it might give you some interest into watching Rebels a little bit more. It does a good job of I guess tying up some of the things most people consider loose ends when they watch The Rise of Skywalker. And even in The Last Jedi, it does. And they're going to talk about it right now. But I was saying this as well in my Rey's parents theory video before The Rise of Skywalker came out. So after we saw The Last Jedi, everyone was freaking out about her parents being nobodies. And I basically said, no, actually the movie did the opposite and said the opposite, but people just couldn't see it for whatever reason. So you can check out my video on that later if you want me to. I could link it up in the comments if you guys like. I don't usually do that kind of self promo, but whatever. It says, in the season 4 episode 13 installment titled A World Between Worlds, the concept of the Veil of the Force was introduced, and a mystical dimension of the Force that connects all time and space, explains Mr. DC. I have received confirmation from 2 additional sources claiming that this is spot on. That indeed Lucasfilm realizes they have a massive problem on their hands, and that the Star Wars franchise is all but dead. And despite Kathleen Kennedy's hatred of this idea, meaning retconning and absolving the world of her nightmare of a trilogy, Lucasfilm is preparing to render the sequel trilogy null and void. This is the claim, right? So take it with a grain of salt. But he does say that this, Cosmic Book News' source, Mr. DC, has apparently 2 claimed sources inside of Lucasfilm that are saying this. And it doesn't seem like that big of a stretch to me. There was a big falling out of Star Wars fandom. Very, very large-scale disappointment with this franchise with the movies. Not with the shows, because all the shows have rocked, but with some of the movies. And I say some because Solo, although it was a financial train wreck, it was because it was boycotted. It was boycotted because of The Last Jedi's failure. People boycotted because of The Last Jedi. People boycotted because Solo died and then they decided to make a movie. They also boycotted because it wasn't going to be Harrison Ford playing Han Solo. They boycotted for a number of reasons. It was just lack of faith. That's why they boycotted. But Rogue One killed it. Rogue One was awesome. I thought Solo was actually a really good movie. I really liked Solo, even though they did inject a little bit of that, that SJW identity politics type of stuff into the film with the L337 droid and just a couple of, concepts throughout. Won't get into that too much, but I thought the movie was great. I actually really liked Solo. A few things I could have lived without. Didn't need to see the dice as much. Didn't need to really know how his name got there, but whatever. It's they tried, and but I liked what they did with Chewie and all that. I think most of Disney Star Wars has actually been quite successful. The Clone Wars, Rebels, Rogue One. I think Solo is drastically unappreciated because nobody saw it. It's not that people didn't like it. It's that people didn't see it. Most people that saw it were like, "Oh, it was all right." They're like, whatever." And the big complaint is that it wasn't Harrison Ford, or that they had already killed off Harrison Ford, which takes me back to my first point. They were boycotting it and don't like it because of what happened in The Last Jedi and in The Force Awakens. So that's more or less what happened. Plus, they didn't market it at all. So they ate through their whole budget. But anyway, it said that, let's keep reading. I don't want to drag on that, but most of Disney Star Wars is all right. It's just the sequel trilogy that sucks. And I stand by that. It said that the events of the Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and Skywalker will be removed from canon and isolated in their own alternate timeline and regarded as an Elseworlds-like installment under the label of Star Wars Legends. Isn't that interesting? So keep this in mind. All of us Star Wars fans that used to read all the books and had the comics, like the Marvel comics, the Dark Horse, and then all of the different mediums for which you could get alternative Star Wars content other than just the first 3 or 6 films. All of that was pushed to the wayside and considered legends, meaning that it wasn't necessarily canon. Now, you can tell who loves Star Wars by, and this is a metric that I've said before, I didn't say as much because I felt like I was just rubbing it in and not making friends with this type of speech. But at this point, we already know how things have played out with the trilogy. It's not like, let's wait and see. It's like, no. The trilogy already happened. The jury's out. People who love the legends tend to love Star Wars for what it is. People that hate legends tend to want to fundamentally change Star Wars from what it is. And Kathleen Kennedy seems to have allowed, not necessarily, I won't go as far as to say that, and I think in some cases you can see this, but she does clearly have an intention behind her directing, not directing because she's not directing the movie, but like the way that she guides the franchise. She's steering it towards becoming something that it never really was. With Star Wars, it was always about family. And she kind of killed that in a way. They tried to make it not about family from the beginning, about Rey not having a family, and then just kind of like having Kylo kill off his family. It was all about let the past die, kill it if you have to, that sort of thing. And that was kind of their approach. It doesn't really work very well because Star Wars is not sci-fi, it's fantasy. And it's not just a hero's journey, it's about family. And so they did kind of try to bring that around at the end, like at the very end, like with the last film with the Rise of Skywalker. They then tried to make it more about what we all anticipated, what I anticipated for sure, was that she was a Palpatine. And if you haven't seen the movie, who cares? Like, it's not really like a matter of spoilers at this point. It's like you might as well save your money, because they might decanonize it. And this again is a rumor, so let's just continue on because there's a little bit more to get to. But if you love the legends like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni do, if you know Star Wars in and out, you live and breathe it, and you love it for what it is, then you're probably going to make good content based on it because you know it better and you appreciate it. If you want to fundamentally transform it, it stands to reason that you find it to be in need of repair and you don't see it as something that is whole or good or that could continue on in a good way. You probably see it as something that is toxic or something that is not inclusive or not good. And if you find that to be the case, then I think you're looking too superficially at Star Wars. You're not looking at it from a storytelling perspective about human nature, about family, about good versus evil. And odds are your worldview probably does not include good versus evil. It probably includes like oppressed versus oppressor, which is a different way to look at the world because it's not inherent morality. It's not evil. It's just empathy, which is not the same. So let's continue on. And I see comments lighting up over here by Daniel's Hot Topics. What's up, dude? Good to hear from you again. I will get to those comments in just a minute, but let me finish this one here. So then what Mr. DC is explaining is that Star Wars multiverse, which is what they were talking about in Rebels, the what's it called? The force that connects all time and space, all that stuff. In the multiverse will be created, which will isolate the Disney Star Wars trilogy as being part of a separate universe that is not part of the George Lucas original Star Wars films. Basically, what they're doing is they've kind of already introduced a way out for Star Wars, within Rebels, within Clone Wars, and within even The Last Jedi, and in The Rise of Skywalker a little bit. So the way that it works is that I think he goes on to like talk about it here. Yeah, he does. I'm wrestling because I want to talk more about it and just kind of give you the gist, but I feel like it's more accurate to just let you read it. I'll tell you what, I'll summarize it. Basically, In Rebels, there was a point where Ezra Bridger goes to try to find more knowledge of the Force. He meets up with Ahsoka Tano, and they're in this area that's kind of like in a Force limbo almost, and they have connection to all of time and space. And like it goes back to when Yoda says the Force surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds us, and it's everywhere basically. It means that the Force is the intrinsic link between all time and space, matter, and universe. So you also get to see in Rebels that Palpatine uses that to go back and forth between different times and arguably universes to actually make it possible to orchestrate the entire takedown of the galactic or of the Republic, the Grand Republic. He actually makes that happen through time travel and by manipulating space and that sort of thing with the Force. Because he's that powerful, he discovered these bridges between that. And so and it's no coincidence that Ezra is Ezra Bridger. He's one of the people that discovered that. And then likely we're going to find him using that maybe down the road in a different story or something, also going outside of the time frame and the universe. Well, they're saying basically, if they can make another film or a story where other Jedi realize they need to stop all of this from happening, they can actually go back in time and defeat the Emperor before he has a chance to complete his plan on Exegol, and then they can actually keep all of this stuff from happening in the first place, and therefore, in this timeline, the Disney sequel trilogy is an alternate story. It's a part of history that is no longer part of their existing continuity because they undid it. So, in this universe, it's like the opposite of Endgame. You know, like in Endgame, they say that when you go back and you change something, it still happened because it's part of your past. In this one, it's different because you get to erase the past, or you get to go to a different universe, a parallel universe, like when Rey was in the island with I was gonna say Mark Hamill, but it is Mark Hamill, but it's Luke Skywalker on the island. She goes down into that dark side cavern and she sees the giant, like the mirrors. She sees herself a billion times. She raises her hand under the thing, and then all of them do it as well. That's the bridge between these worlds, and it's a veil of mirrors, similar to what you see in the animated series with Rebels. So they're basically suggesting here that it's possible they already made a way to go back and retcon this Avengers Endgame style, except for it'll actually erase the timeline instead of just keep it in your existing history. So they want to undo it, and I think they're trying to write a plan to make that happen canonically to decanonize the sequel trilogy. So it would still be canon, but it'd be decanonized through canon. They would make it make sense. Instead of just say those films don't exist, sorry guys, my bad, they're going to write a story that corrects those problems. And I think that is, it could be a really cool way to do that, depending on how you play that out. And this is kind of more or less what they're talking about here. They want to basically erase the sequel trilogy to bring it back around so it doesn't interrupt the George Lucas timeline. And it says here, no Disney sequel trilogy. Han doesn't walk stupidly into a lightsaber. Leia doesn't fly like Mary Poppins through space. Luke has nothing to run away from and consumes no green milk. And I am informed there will be no amazing Wonder Ray after she was born after the Emperor's death. Or as she was born after the Emperor's death. So if the Emperor dies before Rey was born, or even before she was conceived, she may not happen at all. May not, might not. But also, she's the grandchild, not the direct offspring. So she probably still would exist, but there'd be no reason for her father to abandon her out of fear. So that could be a good thing. you might actually get to see a Rey that matters. And then DC, who notes the particulars are still getting... I'm sorry, let me read that again. DC, who notes the particulars are still getting worked on, but that the plan will retcon the sequel trilogy out of our misery and restore freedom to George Lucas's galaxy. And then proof of Star Wars reset. DC offers proof that this may be happening in a scene that was included in Rise of Skywalker, which Rey confronted her dark side self, where the mirrors can be seen in the background. It said it's unknown if Abrams knew that scene was about, or knew what the scene was about, but it demonstrates the plausibility of this rumor. Basically, that they had kind of inserted a couple of things they needed to be in the framework of this trilogy. And it's possible that that was something that was unbeknownst in reasoning to the directors. So, for instance, Rian Johnson doing The Last Jedi may not have been aware of why there was this kind of plot device in the film that never got used. They kind of just showed how the dark side plays on your fear. And I made a video about this regarding Rey's parentage before we knew for a fact that she was Palpatine. I was extremely confident based on The Last Jedi and this exact scene. So you can take a look at that if you'd like. There's more to talk about there. But I think that basically this is a rumor. We don't have a way to verify it at this time, but there is another article from the same source who cites the same source again. Here. Star Wars reset includes Kathleen Kennedy stepping down. This one came yesterday. And so this is another offshoot from the same story, from the same guy, Mr. DC. So I'm going to just continue this as if it's the exact same thing. So it is claimed that Kathleen Kennedy will be stepping down from Lucasfilm to start her own female-centric production company, which follows the rumor that Disney is resetting Star Wars. Now, it's not going to reset Star Wars. It's going to retcon or circumvent the sequel trilogy. It's going to go around the sequel trilogy and find a way to decanonize it canonically. So, details once again come from future ruler of the earth, Lord DC, I'll say, from the Overlord DVD YouTube channel, and this is what he looks like. Pretty funny. He has like backgrounds and stuff, and it's pretty cool. He pulls up slides and stuff and just talks about, Kathleen and, everything that's going on over at Lucasfilm, Dave Filoni, and then also, let me see if I can find it. He talks about the Star Wars Celebration stuff. Plenty of other Kathleen Kennedy memes and references. So with this whole article here is now talking about Kathleen stepping down, which is something that fans have been talking about since Han Solo died in The Force Awakens, but mostly since The Last Jedi came out, because that was the film that really tore the franchise in half. That was what really did it. And The Rise of Skywalker was just the nail in the coffin. Because again, the other projects were not bad. Solo, nobody saw it. That you can't really say that sucks unless you've seen it. People can write reviews. You can trust that they believe it sucks, but you need to see it if you want to judge it. So, or you could just judge it based on the fact that Han Solo is played by a different actor. that's fine, I guess, but it's also similarly ignorant because you, again, don't know how it turned out. And I thought it turned out okay. So Ron Howard did a really good job saving that from, who was it, like Lord and Miller? Can't remember the names of the guys. It says recall it was DC who revealed that Star Wars Rise of Skywalker spoilers, and Doomsday even revealed trouble at Disney. Okay, so they're just citing the people, the credentials again for their source. Star Wars Civil War taking place at Lucasfilm. DC has gone on record stating sources have filled him in that a secret plan is in the works to save Star Wars that involves some sort of Star Wars Civil War taking place at Lucasfilm between Kathleen Kennedy and those loyal to George Lucas, Jon Favreau, and Dave Filoni. And then he again gets into the report. It was stated that Star Wars reset will involve the erasure. I don't know if that's the correct word or if that is a word. The erasure of The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi, and The Rise of Skywalker through a concept introduced in the Star Wars Rebels animated series, The Veil of the Force. Kathleen Kennedy, let me scroll down. Reign of Terror is almost at an end, claims this YouTuber. I've been sitting on this information for weeks now, seeking further confirmation, but at this point I've heard enough from various viewpoints to credit this rumor may have some validity to it. So again, we are listening to a rumor from someone who's sharing a rumor from other people who are sharing rumors. Okay? So that's how much salt we need for this one, okay? So like, keep in mind, this may very well, most likely, is not true, but I will say that there have been enough problems in the business end and so many discussions. I'm actually going to make a video specifically about the making of The Mandalorian so that I can discuss why I think this is actually valid to a degree. It may not be completely 100% true as the headline reads, but I think it'll probably take place in a manner of speaking, in a certain way. It's explained that Kathleen is dead set against the plan, as it will undo everything she has done with Disney Star Wars. That makes sense. It attacks her legacy in a fundamental way, says DC. It is a stinging rebuke to her authority and vision and repudiation of her brand of identity politics, and a signal to a grateful world that the Force isn't female at all, but belongs to everyone. And that's something that was really weird, is to see someone who is now in charge of Star Wars to all of a sudden give it a gender. The Force is female. The sentiment does not mean that the Force is a gender, but the literal definition of what those words meant, the Force is female, means that you're giving it a gender and that it's partial. It implies that it's partial to female. Which I think is an overcorrection, because I don't think that's accurate or true or observable as far as Star Wars lore goes. But this person is intending to fundamentally transform Star Wars, which is why it has not worked. So you piss off the fans when you mess with the formula. So it says Kathleen Kennedy is not renewing Star Wars contract. This is part of that rumor. So obviously the plan to save Star Wars couldn't happen with Kennedy in charge of Lucasfilm, which means when her contract expires in 2021, she is out. Nearly a month ago, my source notified me that a big meeting had taken place regarding the future of Lucasfilm. Bob Iger, who has now stepped down to a secondary role, Bob Chapek, both participated in the meeting. Bob Chapek replaced Bob Iger. Which is significant, but even more significant is who did not participate in the meeting, Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Lucasfilm, says Mr. DC. And Mr. DC says, I am informed that Kennedy never misses meetings like this, and so her absence was notable. One would think a meeting about the future of Lucasfilm would include the head of Lucasfilm. But according to my source, Kennedy did not participate in this meeting. So again, we're hearing rumors of these rumors. But there was other articles from the past. So I remember making a video one time about exactly this, that there was rumors coming out, not from this source, but a different source, that was saying the same thing. They were saying basically that, I think this was, when was this? This was right after Solo flopped. There was meetings about whether or not they needed to have alternative involvement or changing of the roles and the structuring within the brands at Disney as a whole. So it wasn't just Lucasfilm for this meeting. It was like Bob Iger, you had Alan Horn, and then you had the heads of the different branches. You had the guys from Pixar, you had the guys from oh wait, sorry, I've got this like screen thing going on here. Yeah, you had the guys from Pixar, you had the guys from Marvel, you had the guys from Star Wars, you had all these other teams that were there involved. And they were all asked about like their positions, about their opinions, how they run things. And I believe that meeting was there because of the struggle that Disney was having with Star Wars. They weren't having any struggles with Marvel at that time. Captain Marvel hadn't even come out, and I think that was pretty much the only thing. Even though it was financially successful, it was financially successful mostly because, I mean, it was the first Marvel female-led film as far as the MCU goes, but it was told to everyone by Kevin Feige, lied to our faces that you had to see that film to understand Endgame. And that was a lie, but it sold a lot of tickets. And that was a big part of why people still went and saw Captain Marvel. A lot of people didn't want to see it, and they ended up doing it because if you ask most nerds, some people were really excited for it. I was excited for it because I like the Skrulls, and I wanted to see like kind of what they were going to do in that direction. It really ties in closely with the Fantastic Four. Was there going to be a cameo or something like that? And I ended up really enjoying the film for the most part. I gave it like a 7.5 or an 8 out of 10 on my review. You can see that as well. But there was problems, and they didn't come at Marvel until after this supposed other meeting had happened. And Disney has been reassessing whether or not they made the right call, putting a very successful Hollywood producer in a creative officer's position. That's two different things. So producers are not creative officers. Creative officers are not producers. But they put a producer in both roles over a major franchise, which was going to have multiple properties working at the exact same time that she would have to oversee and carry out all of this stuff. And she was the one that implemented, we're going to have like an all-female writer's room. What's the point of that? Like, shouldn't you hire the best people for the job, not just people that are of a certain characteristic or trait? I feel like a meritocracy might be what you want if you want good results. And so you might find that 6 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 of these people are women that are the best suited for the role. But if there's a couple of guys that can knock it out of the park, like Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, you could have them on that writer's board as well. And maybe, just maybe, give them an equal voice, relative to their proportion of that writer's room. So, as we now know, certain people who love Star Wars are killing it. Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, and they're getting a lot of praise and a lot of success coming their way, and they're being championed by the fans as the most capable because their stuff is working. It's really good. It's undeniable. It's really good. And even though Kathleen Kennedy has some wins, she has at least one solid win apart from the Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau stuff. But her big win is Rogue One, because that had her there. It was a project that she oversaw, and that worked really well. She also oversaw many of these other television projects, but she wasn't really involved in the creative process of these. They were given to Dave Filoni, also to Jon Favreau, and Jon's contract was basically like, look, I'm going to tell these stories. You've got to trust me. You've just got to trust me on this. And he's a nerd, so he knows what he's talking about. And he's a fan. He's a big fan of the George Lucas Star Wars. And so that it counts a big time, because if you want to please your customers, it helps to be a customer, like a real customer, not like someone who says like, oh, I'm going to buy one thing so I can wear it at a con and then never again. No, if you like grew up with all that stuff, you spent thousands of dollars in merch, just because you love it, not because there was any political motivation or was going to make you look better or more, right for something. No, these guys are nerds, and they love this stuff, and they live and breathe it, and so it worked really well. Let's continue on. It claimed that the few days prior to the big meeting, Kathleen had a meeting of her own that lasted an hour, and after she left, Kathleen withdrew from contact with underlings. Again, let me remind you, these are rumors, okay? Many grains of salt. So this may not be true. but it does sound like something that probably is happening. That's my opinion. You draw your own conclusions. A couple of weeks ago, Kennedy's right hand contacted the staff, which is predominantly female, if not exclusively, and reportedly conveyed the following message on behalf of Kathleen Kennedy. Miss Kathy has decided she will not be pursuing an extension of her contract. Meaning, if this is true, that means that she wants out. She's really sick and tired of being sick and tired. So if any of you wish to stay with her, you best be making your minds up. You have time. There is no need for any rash decisions, but Miss Kathy has plans to open a female-centric production company, explains this YouTuber, Mr. DC. This actually, to me, does make some sense because Kathleen Kennedy has been getting the brunt of so much abuse as far as, well, okay, I say abuse. Some of it is greatly deserved, and others is just people will, are really frustrated, so they just continue to get louder and louder and talk more and more and post more and hashtag more and more and make edits like mine where you show her all triggered and stuff. And that to me is more or less, I think, what someone would, that's the natural response is like, you served your time, you did something, it didn't really, I mean, it worked, but it didn't really work. You made a lot of money. You oversaw many projects. A few of them were incredibly good. And you actually oversaw some serious technological advancement in filmmaking, which is big. That's really big. If you guys saw the making of The Mandalorian, I'm going to be making videos about that. I think that's a key to understanding what is coming soon for the industry as a whole. Limitless possibilities. Ridiculous. Especially for the world of movies and TV. I think it's unparalleled what could be, what is possible now. I mean, we've never seen anything like this. And this is the way of technology. It continues to move forward, but it's crazy. Kathleen Kennedy leaving Lucasfilm, starting her own production company where she can be a producer, an executive producer, as opposed to, I mean, she may still wish to continue being a creative person, but I think she's going to want to do it in an area and a genre and a field that is more appreciative of her particular goals. Making Star Wars a feminist watering hole is not a good thing because Star Wars has always been balanced. It's always been about men and women. It's been about Luke and Leia. It's been about, it's been, Anakin is, of course, at the heart of pretty much all of it, Luke and Anakin. But you also have tons of stories that were already in place that were female-centric. People don't watch the Clone Wars. That doesn't mean that the Clone Wars doesn't exist. So like if I say, the Clone Wars, the animated series, has a female lead and people are like, oh, well, that's not like the movies. It's like, yeah, but now we have the movies. And Rogue One was freaking awesome. That was a female lead and everybody loves it. But people don't like Rey because she's a crap character. So like you have certain things that are working and certain things that don't. And just because, if you get on the bandwagon, you start to get really tribal and you're like, I'm sick of women in Star Wars and we got to get the women out. No, that wouldn't be Star Wars. Star Wars has always had women. It's always had strong women. It's always had women in very dominating leading roles. Like you have Aayla Secura. Even if you have like secondary, tertiary characters that are part of the Jedi Order, those are characters that, like, if you played the video games or if you grew up on Star Wars, like, for instance, I did, you knew about these characters. You loved these characters. Like, these were characters that were part of your world. And it can be very frustrating when you have people that are not hardcore fans. They're not actually, and I don't want to say the word real. They are real fans of Star Wars, even if they've seen only one thing, like one movie. But you can get a wrong impression of what Star Wars is and what its values are, as far as when people say it needs to be more inclusive. Maybe they need to be more inclusive and watch the content. Because to me, Star Wars has always been this inclusive. I've always loved the villain Asajj Ventress as one of my, I think she might be my favorite Star Wars villain. Everyone loves Darth Vader. That's a duh. I love Cad Bane. Cad Bane's great. But Asajj Ventress was always super fun. I've always really liked her. I liked Aura Singh too. I really like the bounty hunters and like rogue warriors type of characters. I like that. So I really like those characters. But these are all females, and you have so much more to Star Wars than what the news headlines seem to read. It's like first female lead. It's like, okay, screw Ahsoka then, I guess, because Ahsoka is the best and first Star Wars female lead. Like, I'm sorry, like Ahsoka is a billion times better written. Obviously, there's more content, so you can really take your time and really build that character. So that's at television to movies is a little bit unfair because you have the advantage as far as time. You can build that character. So I'll give you that. And yes, it's animated, but that doesn't discount it. That's also Star Wars. In fact, it's more Star Wars to me and to so many than these sequel trilogies. In fact, most people have written them off as basically non-canon fan fiction. And that's what these articles today that we're talking about are addressing. It's that, yes, these films really sucked. I actually did like the first one. I liked what's it called? Not The Last Jedi. I liked The Force Awakens. I liked that a lot. I had so much hype built up from The Force Awakens. And I don't usually get crushed by like hype up here and then the next one's a little lower. That doesn't really, some people really bomb out of that. Like if the quality goes down a little, then they tank. But for me, it was actually my first time through The Last Jedi, I actually felt like I enjoyed it because it had so many big, impressive moments. The cinematography was beautiful. The music was beautiful. The sound effects were beautiful. The problem was what they did to the characters. It was not written from the perspective of character development, except for, I would say, Kylo Ren and a little bit of Rey. But Rey didn't really develop. Like, she kind of kept circling. I mean, that's kind of the way that these trilogies have been written, is like the characters just continue to circle and spiral. And I think it was because of crappy leadership. Kathleen Kennedy allowed the timeline, and this may have been over her head. This might have been a Bob Iger thing because they were trying to get the park developed as well. But they needed more time. If they had given more time, they could have let J.J. Abrams make these films on his own as a trilogy, or they could have just stuck with Colin Trevorrow and let him do it. But they had some disagreements and that sort of thing. They didn't like where it was going. Obviously, Colin made the right choice by pulling out of that trilogy. It was a disaster. And it sucks that Rian Johnson was told to pick up where someone else left off and was allowed creative liberty to do whatever he wanted, regardless of the first person stuff. So, that all just, it sucks. All of it. It's just a crappy scenario. I think Kathleen stepping down is a good idea. I don't even need her to leave the company, though. I think she should step down from one of her 2/many roles. She should still be a producer. She's really good at that. But she should completely absolve herself from creative authority. She should not have that. That is not something that she should have. She should not be part of the creative writing team. She shouldn't be able to make it, a mostly or entirely female, positioning just because of their genitalia. They should be qualified writers that live and breathe Star Wars, and you should have some vetting for that. It shouldn't just be like, let me get my girls together. It should be like, no, you're handling a massive franchise worth billions of dollars. Treat it wisely. And so I think that's kind of where we're at. Hope abounds from these articles. I know it doesn't sound hopeful, like kind of the way that I've been speaking about the events that have taken place, because that to me is a bummer. But what could come based on these rumors is very positive. I do think that we could actually keep Kathleen Kennedy on board. Just make sure she has nothing to do with creative. She should not be a creative officer. She should be producer, because she's good at that. And if you guys don't believe me, let me see if I can pull this up. Kathleen Kennedy produced movies. If I can just load for a second. All right, so first up, take a look at all these Star Wars movies. So she's got Indiana Jones 5 coming down the pike. We don't really know when that's going to be. But The Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, Force Awakens, yuck. All right, let's forget those for a second. Even though they were very, very successful financially. Rogue One, brilliant. Excellent. 2 thumbs up. I love that movie. That's one of my favorite Star Wars movies. It's probably in my top 3. E.T., The Extraterrestrial. Most people like that. I don't personally like that movie, but most people around the world globally love that film. It's a big hit. It's a classic. And she produced that. She also produced Jurassic Park, which is freaking phenomenal. Solo, there was some authoritative disasters. She should have had a better handle on that situation. I'll say that was not a shining moment for her financially or as the executive producer of Lucasfilm. That was not shining, but I liked the movie. So The Color Purple, I don't know about that one. Lincoln, very good. Poltergeist, people like that. I don't know what this one is. Sixth Sense, classic. People are loving. I mean, it's 1999, so it's not like classic, but you know what I'm saying. Like people really like that one. People know that one. Empire of the Sun, The Indian in the Cupboard, that's classic. So many Adventures of Tintin, Hook. You guys know Hook. Twister, War of the Worlds, War Horse. I mean, look at this list. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Munich, Jurassic Park 3. She did the whole Jurassic Park franchise. You can't say that she's not a good producer. So many of the movies that she has produced went on to be incredible successes, financially, culturally. They've become ingrained into our society. Like, they're really legit movies. And even if you don't like all of them, I mean, that's why I haven't seen probably half of them, but close to half of them I've seen, and I know about almost all of them, actually. Yeah, almost all of them. But she's really successful, guys. Like, she's one of the best. And that's why George Lucas was so willing to sell her the franchise. Keep in mind, George went through what she's kind of going through now, where people saw Jar Jar Binks and they were like, "This isn't my Star Wars." And it's like, yes, it's different, and you're different because you grew up. So you were children, kids, teenagers when you saw these fantasy films for families and kids. And yes, I don't take offense to that. I love the wonder, the innocence, but also the combat. Like, it is heavy in tone, but it's made at a rating level that is safe for families. And that's more or less what I think. It's not really kids, but it's made for families, which includes kids. So he took a bunch of crap for that, and he couldn't take it. Eventually he was like, "I'm just going to get rid of it. I don't want to deal with it anymore. I don't want the hate mail. People are sending me death threats." And he really got overwhelmed by what that was. Kathleen Kennedy basically came to him. She was a friend of his and a friend of Spielberg's, and was like, "Hey, I will orchestrate this deal between Disney and you. We can get this done. We can keep your dream alive. We can write stories. We won't pervert it," even though, like, they did. And when I say pervert, I don't mean like in a adult fashion. I mean like pervert it in changing what it is from what it was intended to be to something completely different. And so I can see that she would totally do what these things suggest, that she would leave, not re-sign a contract, but instead step down and then move on. Just continue to go back to doing what she always has done and produce films. I think that she would be really good for that. I hope that she does, and this is kind of a hope for me, is that she is able to stay on board. I don't care. I mean, if she wants to go, you let her go. But if she can stay on board as a producer, she's very, very good at that. Let her produce, as long as she has nothing to do with the creative officer's position or narrative storytelling. Those should not have anything to do with her. Let let Dave Filoni, let Jon Favreau, or someone, you know, like a Kevin Feige come in and help with those storytelling. And even can bring George Lucas back. Hire him on as that creative officer consultant. It's his franchise. He knows it better than anybody. Like, why in the world is this still off the table? Does he just want to stay uninvolved? Because he's visited the sets of The Mandalorian. We know that he helped consult with Dave Filoni and with Jon Favreau. That's a fact. They visited the set. He saw what was going on, but he also consulted with them with story writing. Like, they ran some stuff past him just to see how he felt, and he liked it. And it ended up being that, yes, if George likes it, guess what? The fans are probably going to like it too. I mean, it's not always a Jar Jar Binks scenario where you get some fluke thing where a lot of people will freak out. There will always be people that don't like certain things, but you need to get the vast majority of your original fan base on board if you ever want to have a successful franchise. That was the point of course correcting from Jar Jar Binks, which George Lucas did, from the supposed original plans for Jar Jar. You guys know what I'm talking about. Moving into sticking to Sheev Palpatine, bringing that fully around. Because that was the end result anyway. But he was supposed to be the catalyst to that end. And they still made it so that he was the catalyst to the end in a way through the Revenge of the Sith. Which, again, was a masterpiece. Even people nowadays that go back and see that, other than a couple of cheesy lines, it is a fantastic, epic movie. Unparalleled. It's a miracle. I love that movie. And so, yeah, so that's kind of what we're looking at here. Oh, look, there it is again. You can see the people that love Lucas and his vision for Star Wars because it's his creation in the first place, which would be Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And then you can also see like how Kathleen Kennedy did not do anything of her own accord to bring George Lucas in. He wasn't there for Star Wars Celebration. Word had it that he didn't even get an invite. Like, he was not invited from what we know. But when The Mandalorian was being made, they brought him to set. They wanted him to be there. And that was not something that they did with George for the sequel trilogy. It was something that probably George wanted nothing to do with himself because he understood that's not what Star Wars is, and you're ruining this franchise, and I can't bear to see the way that you're treating Luke Skywalker, the way that you treated Han Solo, the way that you treated all of these characters. You kind of ruined them forever. So no thanks. I don't want anything to do with it. That kind of makes sense. So let me know what you guys think about all of that. There's so much more to this. Go ahead and check this out. I don't want to drag it on even longer than we already have. It's already an hour, and I still wanted to show you just a couple of quick cheerful updates. So I won't read this whole thing, but basically this. The headline is here, and I've tagged it in the description so you can see it yourself. Mandalorian Season 2, there's supposedly like a new look that was put out by Dave Filoni, just a different outfit. It's not really much, but it's also going to start to make her look a little bit more mature, a little older, so that Rosario Dawson can play her, as we know that she is cast as Ahsoka Tano now. She wasn't confirmed for a while, but then now she is. So she's confirmed on the IMDb page. And so we also see here, well, that's interesting. So then it says, staying on target basically just means that they are not delayed. So Mandalorian Season 2 is set to release in October 2020, and it could even drop early to take advantage of an open slot now if they want to move it up. But for now, it's October. It will not be delayed. If anything, it might even move up closer, which is really cool, really good thing, and they're on track. Ahsoka getting a new costume is cool. I'm not really here to talk about that. And then just overall excitement for what's going on with with The Mandalorian Season 2. Lots to look forward to. Disney Star Wars is not all bad. The Disney Star Wars sequel trilogy of films is quite bad. It's quite a train wreck, yes. So I will say, I still stand by The Force Awakens is not the worst. It's not really that bad. It set up a lot. It promised a lot. The problem is The Last Jedi paid off nothing. It made everything worse. It backtracked on everybody's character development. and it ruined Luke Skywalker almost entirely. And then The Rise of Skywalker also was just a train wreck, and none of them were cohesive in story or plot. So, I mean, it was so chaotic. Solo was great. Rogue One was great. I liked the majority of The Force Awakens. I really think it's just two films that really gave everybody zero hope whatsoever. The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker. So let me know what you guys think about all this down below in the comments. And before you go, I wanted to poke in. If you want to see the actual video put together by this guy, it's right here, and I have it in the description below. I'm not subscribed to him yet. I might, maybe. I can kind of come up with most of my own opinions and theories. But I do like this guy. He seems to be like a pretty interesting character. Interesting production. I like this background. That's what's up. All right. So before you guys go, and before I get to these comments, because there's a buttload of comments here, we're going to take quickly. I'll try to get to all of them as fast as I can. Check out the link in my description, in the description of the video, and click that link. It'll take you to my TeePublic account. My TeePublic account is where I have all of my t-shirts and designs for Power Rangers, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, fantasy, other epic designs. But you can also click on the tab for Star Wars, and it'll take you here, and you can see all these designs I did myself of all these different weapons and different Star Wars like meme style designs. But you can also get, like, for instance, Boba Fett's EE3 carbine rifle blaster. You can get Asajj Ventress's lightsabers on a t-shirt, mug, sweater, hoodie, pins, stickers, wall art, whatever you want. Han Solo's blaster, the Mudhorn signet. You can also get this, you know, like lots of different designs here. Best in the Parsec. The originals are my favorite. The sequels are my favorite. That one doesn't sell a lot. And then Gungans suck. You can get Captain Rex designs. I've got multiple different styles of that. Tough as Beskar is one from The Mandalorian. This, the Camino cloning facility. And, of course, Star Wars is Dead, Changed My Mind. Interesting story about this one. I actually uploaded 2 of these to get both perspectives. I said Star Wars isn't dead, change my mind, and Star Wars is dead, change my mind. Disney took down my other design and left this one up. That's a very interesting point to look at. They did not take this one down. They took down the other one, which means that they don't want anyone to defend that Star Wars isn't dead. They just want this one, apparently. So you can go ahead and buy this if you want it. But check it out. You can get all kinds of stuff. Sweaters, stickers, kids' t-shirts, mugs, pillows, totes, tapestries, pins. They even do masks now. Just so you can shop at Target, you know. But you get, like, for instance, this would be a very interesting mask to wear everywhere. Star Wars is Dead, Change My Mind. Really, really fun stuff. So go ahead and check that out. There's 2 different designs as well. They have the pleated double layer. And then they also have the basic face mask. Let me see if I can get this thing to load up. It's not loading. Whatever. It's all good. So anyways, let me go ahead and switch over so I can check what you guys are saying about this video. All right, so I'm back. Let's go ahead and take some comments. All right. Dang, dude, there's all kinds. All right, so Daniel's Hot Topics. What's up, my dude? We're going to be on yours for a little while, and then we'll get to someone else's. But it says, hi, Daniel. What's up? OMG, it is a scorcher, or it was a scorcher day. Yes, it was, dude. It was blazing hot. Even out here in California, it was pretty rough. Daniel's Hot Topic says, yeah, I hear that the sequels are being decanonized. I hope it's not true. It was great. It could have been better, but it was good for what it was, and these movies made billions upon billions. You're right. Financially, they made a killing. Star Wars is a very lucrative franchise, and I think a lot of people still have hope in Star Wars. And part of that is because of Clone Wars. Part of that is because of Rebels. Part of that is just because of the loyalty of the fans from the Lucas era. And a big part of that is also from The Mandalorian and what's going on right now. There is so much good that is coming through Star Wars, even through Disney Star Wars. That is not SJW. That is not weird. Rogue One was fantastic. It wasn't weird or SJW at all. And it wasn't like loaded with identity politics. It had a female lead, but it was a freaking great movie. There was no excuses. There was no lame writing. It was just good. And so yeah, and they made billions and billions of dollars. I do think that there is good that has come from these, but it's really hard to reconcile them to each other as a narrative. Really difficult to do that. Lots of problems storytelling wise and character development wise. We can get into that at a different time as well, unless you've already asked about it, which I'll get to. Daniel's Hot Topic says, there's a rumor that Palpatine survived, jumped into another body, and uses the world between worlds, and he will go back and do something to erase the sequel trilogy. Yes, that's kind of more or less what we talked about, is basically that he's going to jump between worlds, and that other Jedi are going to have to follow him through and stop him once and for all, and then that'll clear up the timeline. I actually do hope that they in canon, they canonize the trilogy. So instead of just saying, sorry guys, blank slate, let's just pretend those didn't happen, but we're still keeping the money, I would hope that they would write a film or a story or a show or something, hopefully a film, that allows them to deal with this world between worlds and go back and stop all of that from happening in the first place, so that they can bring balance, peace, and harmony back into the franchise, through the franchise, not just by going in a business meeting and saying, all right guys, we're not going to recognize these anymore, let's go ahead and stop selling these t-shirts. No, instead of doing that, you can still do that if you want to, but you can write something in the continuity that allows the previous 3 films to not be canon. They get rewritten, basically. I would appreciate that more, because it shows effort. It's not just like, yeah, screw that, that didn't work. Because that to me is lazy. I would prefer them to actually try. And they could do it. I really believe they could do it. Daniel's Hot Topic says, just watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It was great. It was great. Mac and Deke were stranded in 1982 and stayed there for over a year. And Deke created a new team, S.H.I.E.L.D., out of his band. It was a great adventure. Dude, yes, I have not gotten a chance to see Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. yet. Again, so much has happened. I've actually been doing a lot of watching of the Power Rangers with my daughter. She's 3, and we love Power Rangers. Like, we're always watching Power Rangers. And so whenever I've got my kids around, I'm not watching other stuff, but I do get to watch Power Rangers, and so I've been doing a lot of that. My wife has watched, I think, the first 2 episodes, and I still have not gotten around to watching that. So I'm sorry for disappointing on that. I've been planning to do that for months, maybe a month. I think it's 1 month, but have not gotten around to it. I'll get to that though. Daniel's Hot Topic says, Lord Doom COK. I'm gonna try to not say that as much as I can. Victor Von Doom C. on the future ruler of Earth, transmitting from his subterranean lair at the center of the Earth. Yep, heck yeah. Victor Von DC. Yep. Daniel's Hot Topic says, oh, by the way, they will announce a new movie in Marvel Phase 4 timeline. Ooh, exciting. I hope it's Deadpool 3, where Deadpool kills the X-Men and the Fantastic Four in the Fox universe before he goes to the MCU. That'd be really fun. I mean, we talked about that last time we were on the stream with because you had presented that to me. I never got clarity whether that was your idea or whether that was an existing theory that someone else had created, because I would love to see that. But you wrote it to me in the comment section of a live chat last time. And I think that sounds like a fun idea. I don't know if that's the best way to do it, because then you have to deal with, is there a Deadpool from the main continuity that they'll run into? Like, how do you reconcile that? What is the timeline? Is there no continuation of Weapon X, or is just Deadpool not part of that? You know, like, that kind of thing could get a little muddy, or you just have 2 Deadpools. It's not, with Deadpool, logic doesn't have to be the basis of the storytelling. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's Deadpool. He can do whatever he wants, kind of. So logic kind of goes out the window when you can cut your head off and survive and come back, find it, pick it back up, put it on backwards, and you continue living. It doesn't, you know, that kind of is the free pass to do whatever you want, is having Deadpool in your franchise. So I think that it would be a lot of fun. I would like to see it. I know there's some people that don't want that, don't want the crossing of the 2 universes, don't want the Fox franchise to continue. Some might not want Deadpool to join the MCU because they don't want him to be PG-13 or whatever. I don't care if Deadpool is rated R or not. You can still have him be ridiculous. You can still have him be raunchy. You can have him be hilarious. You don't have to have him be so crass. I mean, there's different ways to be funny, right? Like, he can still be crass, but he doesn't have to curse like a sailor in the same way. he can curse differently, and you can bleep it because that's largely what a lot of the comics do anyway. They bleep it all out, and you just get the tone that he is that kind of guy without having to subject your kids to that kind of content directly. So yeah, that's kind of more or less what I'm thinking. Daniel's Hot Topic says, oh, and also, did you see what I sent you, Daniel? I sent you something yesterday about the new Spider-Verse movie. Rumor how Tobey Maguire may die in the movie and Miles Morales will become the new Spider-Man for the Raimi-verse. I think that's interesting. I think I saw your comment, but I didn't get a chance to check out I think it was a video you sent me, not an article. So I didn't have a chance to check it out. But the concept to me it's fun. I like it. I mean, but the thing is that with Miles Morales, he was an Ultimate Universe character, and I feel like the tone is very different. There's less humor, and I feel like Miles kind of needs a little bit more humor. I mean, he's got a different sense of humor than Peter does, but it's at the same time, it's like it's supposed to play off of that same thing. Spider-Man is witty, he banters, jokes with his enemies, throws them off guard with comedy. I see less of that in the Raimi-verse, but it doesn't matter to me. I will be excited no matter what to see Spider-Man in Doctor Strange 2, if that's the case. And then if they're going to do that where they bring in Miles Morales into that kind of canon universe, that's also awesome, but I think that's too big of a stretch. I'm thinking that when we see Spider-Man in the Raimi-verse, we call it the Raimi-verse, but the MCU is different than the Raimi-verse. If they bridge that through a cameo, though, or through the multiverse, that would be different. But you also need to keep in mind, the movie is not about Spider-Man. The movie is about the multiverse of madness as it pertains to Wanda and Doctor Strange. It's Doctor Strange's movie, so there may be a cameo towards Spider-Man, which would be awesome, and I want that. But I don't think they're going to get so deep that it's going to be like, in Tobey Maguire's universe, you also have Miles Morales is going to be the one that takes over, and Tobey is dead now. I think that it'll be less than that. I think it'll be, if they're going to do it, it'll be more directly seeing Tobey Maguire again as Spider-Man. That, I think, will be a quick cameo that could bridge into more stories told later down the road in other fashions, which would be fun. I mean, I'm open to so much of this. Multiverse means anything can happen, and it doesn't have to affect your immediate timeline. So multiverse works for me. And I like Miles. So Daniel's Hot Topic says, also, they will make a movie series for Miles Morales in the Sam Raimi universe. I will watch it because it's the Sam Raimi universe moving forward. Also, I know there is no way to get Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine in the MCU. However, Hugh Jackman is not against making cameos, and his Wolverine in the MCU may come in for special movies. I kind of don't want them to bring Hugh Jackman back to the MCU unless it's in the multiverse and we don't have to have him linger. Because we're going to have different X-Men almost certainly. And I would not want to have just the one from the universe and then bring no one else back. To me, that's a little frustrating. Deadpool, you can get away with. Ryan Reynolds, you can totally get away with. Wolverine, on the other hand, I don't think so. And I love Hugh Jackman. If you're going to bring Deadpool back, you can bring Wolverine in a certain way, but I think it's time for a new Wolverine. I've kind of come around to that point where I'm like, look, we need to do Wolverine a little bit more comic book accurate. He needs to be shorter, he needs to be bulkier, stockier, and he also needs to be like gruff as heck. I would love to see someone along those lines get the role who is much closer to the actual Wolverine than the tall, slender Hugh Jackman was, even though he bulked up to a ridiculous and impressive and truly inspiring level. He was still taller than everybody else. And they didn't try to hide that after the first film. They had one moment where they did that. And after that, they just stopped doing it. They just didn't care enough. And they were just like, you know what? He's so tall and some of our other actors and actresses are so short. We will not be able to reconcile this height difference. But we're going to move on anyway. And it worked. It was great for what they were aiming for. But I would like to see more comic book accuracy moving forward. And I think that it would be cleaner for the timeline to just do that. Deadpool could cross over. I don't care about that though. Because Ryan Reynolds is still like on contract, still making films, and you could keep him separate or you could join him. It won't matter for Deadpool because he's a fourth wall breaker. The nature of his character is not continuity; it's discontinuity. So anyway, let's continue on. Daniel's Hot Topic says, for example, the way I would do it is maybe somehow a multiverse is pouring in the MCU. And people from other universes get stuck in the MCU like Wesley Snipes and Blade, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. Maybe an alternate version of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine gets through the events of Logan, and he is wandering in the MCU making cameos in movies moving forward. It would be really interesting to have someone be the cameo guy instead of Stan Lee, who is now deceased. Stan Lee has previously been the guy that's every single time been doing the cameos, and that's been wonderful. That's always a fun Easter egg to have, but it would be nice to have someone continue that legacy, and I feel like instead of Wolverine doing it, I feel like the better choice for that is Deadpool. Why not have Ryan Reynolds littered throughout the MCU like a freaking Where's Waldo? Like, why not have him in there everywhere complaining about a hot dog price on the corner or kicking pigeons in the park, or like whatever you want to do, you could do it with Deadpool in that cameo sense. It would be a lot of fun. You don't have to get explicit with it. It can just be a fun, brief comedic moment or a simple, stupid, drop-in cameo or a hidden Easter egg type of thing. But that would be really fun for fans. And that's kind of like the Stan Lee hunt. The Stan Lee hunt is always really obvious. The only time it wasn't obvious was, I think it was in Luke Cage or in what was it? Daredevil season 2 or Punisher. I can't remember which one it was. But I think it was with the Punisher. His face was on a newspaper. That was the cameo. And so that one was incredibly difficult to spot. I found it on the second time watching through. And so that one, yeah, I think the better choice for that is Deadpool, because he's fourth wall breaking. He doesn't stick to rules. He breaks every rule by logic, by continuity. He doesn't make sense as a character, and I think that'd be fun. Wolverine, though, would be weird because he is supposed to be in continuity. He doesn't break continuity, and he's not like silly. So when you find him in the universe, it's kind of like a jokey way to add him in, which is like how they did it in First Class, where they like went to that bar and they found him. And they're like, hey, we'd like to invite you to be part of our school. And he's like, go F yourself. That was kind of more or less what was going on with that. And it worked for many, but it was also kind of like a disappointment and throwaway because you wanted him in the movie because he's a serious character. He's not just a simple throwaway. So that's like, I feel like Deadpool, you can get away with that, but you wouldn't be able to get away with that with someone like Wolverine. Hunter Iggy says, Hunter Iggy, I have this topic in my notes. I'm going to make this video probably later this week. Power Rangers is one of my top favorite franchises of all time. It's the least toxic out of any franchise ever. It's fan-freaking-tastic. I love that, and I have a lot to say about the partnership with Toei. So Hunter Iggy says, what is your thoughts on Hasbro ending their partnership with Toei? I think, briefly, let me give you the gist with not a lot of explainer. I think it is, this won't be a clarifying answer for you. It is both encouraging in many ways and discouraging because the traditional method of relationship between Sentai and Power Rangers has defined the way that it has been made since day one. And I will miss that. But there are plenty of other possibilities now that can come from breaking off from the original path and design of the filmmaking styles that Toei has held since day one. If you think, and I'll say this, think about this. Power Rangers seasons are like 30 episodes. You know, some have like 20 something episodes, some have like 30 something, 40 something episodes. They make films and TV differently in other parts of the world. With Toei, they've been doing it the same way for a very, very long time. Keep in mind, the budget for each franchise is set at the beginning. And they have to spread that out over all of those episodes. And the writing has to kind of go along with all of those episodes. I love this style. I have nothing negative to say about that style. I actually really enjoy it. But think about the possibility. If you are to cut the episode numbers in half, instead of say close to 40 episodes, you have close to 20 episodes. You can crunch together a lot of the unnecessary storylines that happen, where it's usually something more simple, kid in the park or something like that needs help, and then the moral of the story is the same one that happened 4 or 5 episodes ago, where you help people in need, and which is good. I love that about Power Rangers. That's one of my favorite things about it, is that it has good morals and it encourages good morals and good behavior. But you could cut back a lot of the repeated stories that are usually filler episodes, monster of the day type of episodes, which I love. And you could actually double the budget per episode. So you could double the budget per episode and allow there to be considerably more action, better quality, CGI. Power Rangers Beast Morphers is doing an incredible job right now. I had an interview with Leanna Ramirez, who plays one of the villains, and she was remarkable. She's fantastic in the show, but she's also great as a person. Getting to know her in the interviews, you can check those out. Power Rangers Beast Morphers, I think, gives me a lot of hope. If I hadn't seen Beast Morphers, I would be really discouraged by this news. But separating from Toei, I think that like Nickelodeon has really good avenues of structure. They have really good paths to creating good, longer than just a 13 episode season, or an 8 episode season like most people are doing on like Disney Plus. I don't particularly like the 8 episode season. I like closer to a 13. Sometimes 8 works though. Just depends on what you're doing. But for Power Rangers, I like more. I like more content. Go from like a 40 or 30 to a 15 or 20 episode season, and you can get yourself a lot done, and you can get a lot better quality out of each episode. You can a lot more action sequences and more stunts and better, better costumes and weapons and CGI technology, CGI and technology for the production itself per episode with the same budget. So I think the difference being that you will have to allot part of that budget into shooting the scenes that were originally just donated from the Sentai. So that was something that was saving the American franchise or the worldwide American, English speaking franchise a lot of money, was that most of these combat scenes were already shot from the Sentai, and then they would just shoot over the parts where they needed their original out of costume characters, or whether they were going to show their face. Those scenes had to be shot original, but the other scenes were recycled. So some of that is saved budget, some of it is not. And I think, though, that there is possibility. Some people were suggesting animation being a possibility. I'm 100% down for that. Some people don't like that. I'm down. I like it. Give me more Power Rangers. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Anyways, I'll leave that there because we have some more comments to get to, and I got to shut this thing down. All right. So Daniel's Hot Topic says, and I will talk about that in greater detail in a separate video. So Daniel's Hot Topic says, like, for example, maybe the new X-Men and new Wolverine in the MCU. Wolverine, whoever that will be, will be fighting Magneto, and Hugh Jackman Wolverine shows up and he sees the fight, and then the claws pop. The claws pop out, and then he says, forget it, and walks off. So he is in the MCU, and that will be enough to get fans super excited, and it will add value to the MCU. People will be flocking in to see the movies for that. I think maybe that is a possibility. But to have Wolverine enter the MCU and then be like fighting, about to fight Magneto and then just stop, that may be good as a comedic point, but comedy works less, I think, for Wolverine than it does for other characters. If you were to have again, this isn't just me wanting Deadpool in the MCU or not wanting Wolverine in the MCU, but just trying to look at how that fits with characters. I think that that may play better to a character that is better suited for that kind of character trait. Wolverine doesn't often excuse me, guys. Wolverine does not often give up. He's known for being scrappy. He's known for never backing down. He's the smallest guy in the room, but the toughest as well. And for him to just be like, I'm done, or I'm tired, or he's just old and just gives up on that kind of fight, or doesn't want the squabble or whatever, it seems a little out of character. I think Deadpool would fit that closer. People would flock to the MCU film, whatever one it is that has Wolverine there. But I also think that Logan had such a good, clean resolve. I would not really like to mess with that as much outside of a cameo, maybe in a Deadpool franchise. So that's, or he can show up in a cameo in Doctor Strange 2. I would like that, but I don't want him to become a main player. Here's the thing is Wolverine, for a very long time in the X-Men history, was not part of the X-Men. He was a Hulk villain first, which is, I believe, maybe even to this day, the most expensive first issue comic for the Hulk ever, which is the one where he fights Wolverine. They retconned him in to be a mutant. They wrote his backstory in after that point so that he could be part of the mutant mythology and become an X-Men eventually. He was part of Alpha Flight. He was a lone wolf. There's a reason why in the 90s TV series that Jean Grey didn't have much of a thing for Wolverine. She healed him. She cares about him as a person. She saved him. She knows that he likes her, but Wolverine does not have a relationship with her. He has this like, she saved me type of thing. She brought me peace when I had none for my whole life, and he's infatuated with her because she's beautiful, but he can't have her. The films did a real disservice by making Wolverine a bigger character than he really is. It worked inside of its franchise because Hugh Jackman was awesome as the character. They wrote the films for Wolverine. They did not write them for the team. They did not write them for the X-Men as a whole. They wrote them for Wolverine, which is why everyone hates Cyclops now. Everyone thinks that Cyclops is literally just an impediment or an impediment between Wolverine and getting Jean Grey, and Jean Grey from being with Wolverine. Like, that's a big lie. That's something that is not part of the comics. Well, the early comics, it was not part of like the original, characteristics. They kind of rewrote her to be more immoral, I guess, and less dedicated to Cyclops, who is her man, who is the love of her life. That's her husband. It doesn't work to me. I prefer to keep Wolverine as almost his own hero. I would like him to remain a lone wolf for a while before he joins back up with the X-Men, because there's some serious conflicts there. And so I don't know. I've got a lot to say about the X-Men. This is not the place. I'll do it in a different one. And then Daniel's Hot Topic says, It's so sad Mark Hamill will not return in future Star Wars, even if they reset the sequel trilogy. But if they reset the sequel trilogy and Star Wars Episode 7, 8, and 9 does not happen, how do they explain how Luke Skywalker is still gone because of the sequels never happen? Luke does not die. Yes, that's tough. I mean, you don't really get a chance to do that. You're going to have to, if you're going to retcon the sequel trilogy, you should probably start telling stories other than Luke Skywalker's stories. So you probably almost don't want to retcon that. I mean, you obviously have to acknowledge that either he didn't die the way he did, or he died a different way, or he's still alive. I'm guessing that whenever they reset the timeline, if they do reset the timeline, that film or TV show will canonically explain what is going on with every character from the main trilogy. So it'll do like the end of Rebels had that kind of a flash sequence where it said like this person went on to do this person went on to do that, this person was here, this person died there, this happened, you know, this person went on to the Battle of Endor. They kind of like they did a bit of an explainer for everybody and then left some mystery as well. You could do that in the exact same way at the end of whatever film is going to decanonize canonically the sequel trilogy. So that's more or less what I'm thinking. Daniel's Hot Topic says that was one of the pitches that Ryan Reynolds brought to the Marvel Disney Deadpool Kiss the Fox Marvel Universe. Yeah, I mean, kills the Fox Marvel Universe. Yeah, I think that that's a great pitch. I would love to see that, and I hope that if they do that, they could do it one of two ways. They could do it inside the MCU, or they could have the MCU come into a Deadpool franchise. They could have MCU actors and characters cameo or have guest roles or supporting cast roles in this Deadpool movie where he literally just goes around and kills the entire Marvel Universe in a massive sequence of battles chained together by hilarious banter and comments and some form of a quest. You could do that. You could absolutely do that. I would love to see that. Put it on, you know, they won't do it on Disney Plus if it's going to be Deadpool, his franchise, unless they make it PG-13, which I could get down for. They could even do an animated version. Like, they could do an animated version in the What If series. That would be freaking great. Oh, you know what? They could even do the Fox X-Men characters in the Fox X-Men timeline with the Fox X-Men actors in the Disney Plus What If series animated style. Because they're doing that with the actual live action actors in What If already, doing What If universe storylines, including Marvel Zombies, with the actual actors, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson. They're all coming back for their own roles. You could have that happen with the X-Men. Do it in the What If. That would be freaking cool. I mean, it's not live action, but I think that might be better because then it does help to separate that for people as far as universal timelines go. So I kind of like that. All right, so then that's pretty much it. I mean, this video's gone on for quite some time. We're at an hour and a half. But again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Again, before we go, and are we there yet? Hello? Can you guys hear me? I am having a weird moment on my screen. Okay. I think I was glitching out for just a second. Hopefully you guys are able to see me and hear me. Please, if you guys have a chance, before you close out this video, like the video, share it with a friend, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you can be alerted right away when I go live next time. That way you guys won't miss a single thing, and you can be part of the stuff of legend. And if you have the money, click the link down below and get yourself some sick merch. So hopefully you guys caught all that. My screen was glitching out, but basically just like, share, comment, subscribe, notifications, and if you have the money, support me by getting yourself some dope merch at my merch store right here. So you guys can get yourself a Target entrance key. You could also get yourself some dope Star Wars t-shirts, designs. Get your favorite weapons from Star Wars, your favorite lightsabers, whether it's Yoda, Ezra Bridger's blaster saber, Qui-Gon Jinn's saber, Kylo's, Cal Kestis's from the video game, all that good stuff. You check it out. You let me know. Or if you even did the Power Ranger stuff, I know we got some comments. Hit it up. Thank you so much. Love you guys. See you guys next time right here on The Stuff of Legend. Hey guys, this video, give it a thumbs up, and remember to share this video with all of your nerd friends. I know you got them, and you know who they are. Leave a comment below and let me know what you thought about this discussion. Let me know what you would like to see me do a video on next. Subscribe to the channel because you're a legend, and we have that in common. Also be sure to turn on notifications to be notified right away when I upload my next video, or so that you can be alerted when I go live next time. That way you'll never miss a thing. Check out the other videos on the channel so that we can have a discussion on all your favorite movies and TV topics. Thanks again for watching. right here on